the next couple of minutes, I'm going to show you how to lose 30 pounds as fast as possible. I believe that clarity is the key to unlocking potential power. This allows us to see things for what they truly are. In the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly what needs to happen for you to shed the first 30 pounds. This will not only give you momentum, but will also teach you a specific blueprint so that you can lose weight consistently and sustainably until you reach your goal. What if I told you that everything you've heard about dieting up until this point is flawed? What if I said that while all fad diets might show some initial progress, they ultimately end up in disappointment? You might make some progress, but ultimately you end up back where you started, and often you even regain the weight back with a vengeance. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. You see, sugar stored in your liver requires water to hold it in place, making it a heavy energy source. Water is much heavier than fat. And that's why when you embark on a very low calorie diet, your liver energy stores are the first to go. As you use up the sugar in your liver for energy, the water is flushed out and boom, you see a significant weight loss in the first couple of days. But truly nothing is happening from a weight loss perspective. Very, very tricky. But here's the trick that the famous fad diet is never going to tell you. You're flushing water out and making weight loss temporary. That's all you're doing, is just getting rid of water. This is why you lose a ton of weight up front. And of course, people get motivated and they think, oh, this is great. Then of course you get stagnated and you get very frustrated. Maybe you're confused by all these different programs out there. Keto, Atkins, Paleo, Whole30. These are what I call sprint strategies. You do well in the beginning, but when you go into reality, into the friction of life, into the busyness, into the temptations, these things just don't hold up. There's no sustainability built into the vast majority of these programs. People really struggle. And then of course you see people that get frustrated and they start asking me questions. JT, do you think it's my hormones, my age, that I'm big bone? Maybe I'm overweight because I'm Italian or German. We come up with all these different stories on why we are not releasing weight. Then you're also facing peer pressure, and that peer pressure is coming from family, friends, and you feel left out as your skinny friend eats whatever she wants and doesn't gain any weight. How frustrating. You resort to going back to the gym because of course that's the easy thing, right? Checking the box and saying, hey, I'm just gonna go sweat, work it out. But the truth is you've already been to the gym for 6 months or a year and you haven't lost this weight and you haven't decreased any body fat percentages, or maybe just a little bit. If you go to the gym for a whole year, you may lose 5 or 7 pounds. If you don't make any adjustments to your diet, that's all you're gonna lose. Here's what you need to know about sustainability. Long-term restrictions are not sustainable. You can't be on a program that is constantly restricting you. By the way, like the vast majority of fad diets. I believe we need to operate in seasons. Solomon mentioned it, King David's son, Solomon, mentioned that there are seasons in life and we need to apply those seasons. And those seasons start off oftentimes with lots of restrictions, right? All beginnings start with restrictions. Even if you go into the military or you start a new job or courtship, things are always difficult in the beginning. The interesting thing about being in a restriction for a little while is that it really molds us. It gives us character, it teaches us how to persevere. A lot of great things happen in this sort of phase, this season of restriction. But then of course comes freedom. And this is the really cool thing. If you've been on all these diets and you felt restricted and you feel like you're never gonna get out of that restriction, then I know you're probably frustrated and a lot of the things that I'm saying here you're resonating with. In other words, I'm preaching to the choir. If that's the case, here's what needs to happen so that you can lose 30 pounds, more importantly, so that you can keep it off as fast as possible. Number one, you need to go into a season of retraining your palate and your brain's reward pathways. Inside of a program, we call that phase one. Phase one is that phase in where we're gonna cut some things out so that we can make some progress, sort of retrain your palate, meaning your affections for certain foods that may be getting you in trouble, so that when you go to those foods, back to those foods, you won't need them or like them as much as you need them or like them now. That phase one is very powerful. It's a big shifter and mover, and you need to be in this phase so that you can really train and mold your character around being able to say no to these things that are so tempting to you. Number two is a season where you slowly reintroduce macros in a very diligent way. So when I say macros, I'm talking specifically about those high insulin yielding foods that in phase 1 we put aside, but because we don't demonize food groups, we bring them back in diligently so that you can start to understand physical hunger versus emotional hunger. As soon as you bring in these slow digesting carbs, you're gonna notice that you're gonna have insulin spikes. And so we need to learn how to control those things. In the beginning, the cravings come back, but if you persist in that phase 2, something very, very interesting happens, because now you can identify my next point number 3, physical hunger versus emotional hunger. That's a very powerful thing that you need to learn in order to make nutrition sustainable. You need to understand when you get emotionally triggered towards food and when you're actually physically hungry. And from there, you can make better decisions. Point number 4 really piggybacks off of what I just said. When you transition into that phase 3, you now get to a point where we call intuitive eating. There's a lot of freedom around phase 3, because at this point, since you now recognize emotional hunger versus physical hunger, you can make good choices that are empowered by rationality and not be reactive to your environment. Number 5 is the idea that for the rest of your life, you can basically manipulate starchy carbohydrates, because at the end of the day, those are the ones that usually get us in trouble. So you're gonna learn how to carb cycle and stay in a maintenance phase. And so the 3 phases from a timeline perspective basically look like this inside of the Empty Your Bucket nutrition plan. Phase 1 is called Reset, and that is about 6 weeks and where we are retraining your palate and your brain reward pathways. Phase 2 is more of what we call that carb cycling phase, when we're reintroducing some things. And then phase 3 is where we basically stay in maintenance. We can practice intuitive eating. There's lots of freedom around food, and it's a very, very powerful tool for sustainability. Last, I want to say that in order for you to make sustainable changes, all these things that I said make sense and work. But ultimately, the thing that's going to help you really transform and change forever is a heart conviction. No one does things simply out of rules. You've already tried the rules. The rules work for a little while, but then they fall off. You need to really connect this journey to something that pulls on your heartstrings and allows you to live from conviction. Now you're making decisions based on convictions. Let me give you an example. For me, everything I do in my life is consistent with the legacy that I want to leave for my family, for my wife, for my girls. And because of that, that's a very, very powerful engine that moves me in the right direction every single day. I have connected everything from the way I eat to the way I speak to everything I do in life to leaving a life legacy and something that my daughters and my wife can be proud of when I'm an old man. And so that's something that pulls me in the right direction, something that keeps me very, very motivated. And so if you're looking for a plan that is not just focused on rules and regulations and restrictions, then I want to invite you to consider the Empty Your Bucket nutrition plan as that strategy that is going to bring sustainability, because we engage the mind, the body, and the spirit. And I truly believe that these 3 areas need to be engaged in order for you to have a sustainable plan. If you don't consider us for whatever reason and you decide not to go over to emptyyourbucketplan.com, that's totally okay. If we're not family yet and you haven't subscribed to this channel, I would simply say, come onto the channel, watch the videos that we offer for free, and get results, because I know that if you watch these videos, you follow these things, you're gonna get amazing results. On the other side, you're gonna find sustainability like never before. I hope you enjoyed this video. More importantly, I hope you put it to action. My name is JT Tapias with the Empty Your Bucket Nutrition Plan. I enjoy speaking about things that edify the mind, the body, and the spirit. I'll talk to you guys soon. Ciao, ciao.